Hi, Kappa Queens.
Holy Mother of God, what is this?
Ready to get your scream on?
No way, no freaking way!
This is my audition for Chanel number 7.
You can't make a pledge, a Chanel.
What do you want me to do? 2 Chanels are dead. I need Chanels and I'm running out of minions.
Hey, what's up you guys, it's me Luke and welcome back to another video, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel where I post commentary and reaction and deep dive videos on movies, TV shows, and reality TV.
Hashtag cahoots.
That's not evidence. I just like the show.
Today's video is part 2 in my deep dive and recap of Scream Queens Season 1. If you have not already seen the first video, I will link it down below. I uploaded that on Halloween because the series was originally supposed to come out in October for Spooky Month. But life got in the way, as it does, so we are here doing it anyway, but I think it'll be fun leading up to the festive season because there is a lot of stuff within the first season that covers Halloween, you know, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Christmas, all that kind of jazz. But definitely check out that previous video because I give a rundown on how the show came to be, you know, with its creators, all of its inspirations, why it was cancelled, and I also cover the double premiere, so the first 2 episodes of Season 1, recapping the plot, citing some iconic quotes from the show, as well as showing you some iconic clips from the show.
You're an awful person.
Maybe, but I'm rich and I'm pretty, so it doesn't really matter.
I'm pointing out classic references from horror films from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. All while keeping track of the mystery here on my handy dandy mind map, where we track whether the characters are in Kappa Kappa Tau sorority or the Dickie Dolly Scholar Club, whether they have been attacked or killed by the Red Devil. We're trying to figure out who the Red Devil is, the masked serial killer on Wallace University campus, targeting our Kappa girls, as well as the connections between the characters, with green lines indicating romantic or sexual connections, blue lines indicating familial relationships, and red lines indicating killers. In the last video, we had 5 deaths, 2 attacks, and 1 death fake out, and there are many, many more deaths to come. The stakes are high because let's not forget that anyone could be the killer, and anyone could be a victim. I'm not going to give too much of a recap of what happened in the last 2 episodes because you can go watch my first video, but just to catch you up, you know, since it's probably been a week or 2 since that video came out, we ended off the last episode with the reveal that Boone Clemens was not actually dead, but faked being killed by the Red Devil because he is working in cahoots with them.
Hashtag cahoots.
And I'll recap any other necessary information as we go through the next couple episodes. But without further ado, let's get into it because I'm about to dive into this deep dive and recap of Scream Queens Season 1, Part 2, covering episodes 3 to 5. Let's get into Season 1, Episode 3 of Scream Queens, titled Chainsaw. So this episode begins at night at the local gas station where Zayday and Grace are picking up some snacks because the Kappa girls don't keep any food in the house, and Grace has pointed out that since Miss Bean was killed and there's no longer any food being cooked, the Chanels have resorted to eating cotton balls. Okay. While picking up their snacks, they start discussing how suspicious Pete is because if you remember in the previous episode, Grace found the Red Devil's costume in his closet, but he just played it off by saying, well, you know, the Red Devil is the school's mascot and I'm the school's mascot. So, you know, plausible deniability at this point. All of a sudden, the Red Devil appears and Grace tases him and Zayday knocks a shelf onto him. They rip off his mask, but it's just some guy that Zayday goes to class with named Eugene.
Ow, my nuts! Ah, it hurts so bad.
So obviously the Red Devil, being the serial killer and the school's mascot, a costume that maybe anyone could have access to, is really running tensions high. And like I said in the previous video, this is very similar to Scream because in the Scream franchise, there is a film franchise within the film franchise called Stab. So tons of people wear Ghostface's costume, so it kind of makes it a little difficult to tell who is really the killer and who is just an imposter. The next morning in the Kappa meat locker, Chanel is freaking out because Chanel number 5 has showed her that Chanel number 2's body is missing.
Is she alive? Is she dead? Who is stealing all these bodies?
Don't ask me! I'm not the killer.
So if you remember, they first put Miss Bean's dead body in the meat locker, then it disappeared. Then they put Chanel number 2's body in the freezer, and now that's disappeared. So somebody is stealing the bodies. Let's not forget, previously when they put number 2's body in there, Hester was the one suggesting that they leave the door unlocked so her soul isn't trapped there and she doesn't haunt them. Bit suspicious if you ask me. Anyway, Chanel number 5 is over it and she says, and I quote, "I was just bored, so I came out here to look at number 2's frozen dead body, and lo and behold, she's not here." Look, Chanel, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm sort of over this whole serial murder thing that's going on right now. Last night, I had an amazing threesome with Roger and Dodger, and I realized I'd rather focus my attention this semester.
I'm getting spit roasted by hot golf rat twins than help you figure out who's murdering a bunch of dumb gashes.
Okay. Chanel is completely dismayed by this information and is like, what the hell are you even talking about? And number 5 goes on saying, when I was getting Eiffel Towered by hot morons who are brothers, it occurred to me that I don't really care what number 2 is. You're the president, which means it's your problem. I would just hop to it if I were you, because pretty soon folks are going to start noticing her body is missing and they're going to start snooping.
Don't you walk away from me, number 5. I will destroy destroy you, bitch!
Alrighty, so number 5 has finally stood up for herself. Okay, she's like, I will not let you Gretchen Wiener me. Well then again, even Gretchen Wiener had her moment. So Grace and Zayday sneak into Chanel number 2's room and see that all of her stuff is gone and that there's a huge stain on the carpet.
Although with the Chanel's, it really could be anything. Bulimia.
Okay, Grace. Guess everyone's a bitch around here. Denise Hemfield then shows up.
Maybe it's blood. Of course, it's blood.
She turns off the light and sprays something on the carpet, which starts glowing blue, and she says it's luminol. It reacts to the iron and hemoglobin, and that it's pretty suspicious no one's looking for Chanel number 2, especially considering that on her Twitter, she tweeted that she was being murdered by the Red Devil. But Grace is being a naive idiot, saying the Chanels just said number 2 had a nervous breakdown and went back home to California. And Denise really dumbs it down for her, pointing it out to her clearly. There's a killer on the loose, a blood stain, and a missing girl, and a cry for help for tweet.
And y'all standing here like, ooh, I wonder what happened. The girl is dead.
And Grace is like, well, yes, it appears that way, but look, she's still posting on her Instagram. And it's literally an obviously photoshopped photo of her dead body with sunglasses on a pool lounge. Oh my god, Grace, I need you to think through that thick fuck-ass hat of yours and use some context clues, because you clearly should not be sleuthing or investigating, because it's extremely obvious that number 2 is dead and you are falling for all of the Chanel's traps. God, she's so annoying. Anyway, Zayday suggests maybe they should just go to number 2's house and ask her parents over in Bel Air, which is like crazy because the show is set in Ohio, which is like in the middle of America, and Bel Air is in California, which is on the other side.
Whoa. Y'all just gonna go to Bel Air? I mean, just like that?
So I guess they're just gonna hop on a quick flight in the middle of a school week, but I digress. So it's nighttime now, and the university is holding a candlelight vigil for the lost souls of the Red Devil, who so far the only ones they are aware of is Tiffany, aka Dev Taylor Swift, and Boone Clemens, who we all know is actually alive and in cahoots with said Red Devil. Chad's talking to his friend Earl Grey, which is a new character. His personality trait is being British, which is kind of funny, I guess, because his name is Earl Grey, which is the name of a British tea. Lol. Chad's talking about the death of his bestie Boone, saying that it's just one of those things in life that hits you hard and you think to yourself, wow, it's gonna be weeks before I'm really truly over this. Chanel then goes over to Chad to give him her condolences and check on how he's doing, and he's like, well, my best gay friend who used to give me compliments all the time is dead, so how do you think I'm doing, Chanel? Chanel tells Chad that she wants to be the one to tell him how awesome he is all the time, and she wants to get back together with him. All she asks is that he just has sex with like a smaller amount of people.
Do you understand how controlling that is, Chanel?
This pisses Chad right off, and he's like, you're not a psych major, so you won't get that, but you're being so pathological right now. Why do you even care who I sleep with? It's not like I love those chicks. And this gives Chanel the little inkling of hope that she needs, and she's like, oh my god, you love me? And he's like, that's not what I said, and she's like, ah.
You love me.
Stop saying that.
But Chad says, and I quote, look, Chanel, you're hot, I guess.
I mean, your boobs are symmetrical and you shave your box in a hot way.
Sorry. But you're also responsible for one of the worst pledge classes in the history of the university, and at this point, I'm not even sure I could have sex with you. I'd be doing you, and then all of a sudden I would look down and see the back of your head, and then I would just start picturing the back of the head of one of your ugly pledges. And I'm sorry, Chanel, that just can't happen.
I gotta break up with you again.
Chad!
Yeah.
I don't know why they keep breaking up with each other, like they've been broken up this whole time, they haven't gone back together. Like he's broken up with her like 4 times. I guess Chad's just really butthurt when Chanel broke up with him for the first time because he said no one breaks up with Chad Radwell.
You're breaking up with Chad Radwell. You're gonna be sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I accept your apology. And now I'm breaking up with you.
What?
Chanel asks Chad if there's anything that she can do so he'll get back together with her, and he says honestly all she can do is pray that the serial killer murders all of her pledges, because that's the only way she'll ever be popular again. So I mean, that gives Chanel clear motive to be the killer, does it not? And she did already kill Miss Bean, so we know she's capable of murder. But then it also gives a motive to Chad, because clearly he's a psychopath with his sexual obsession with death and the way he talks so cavalierly about killing people. We then go over to Sam, who goes over to Chanel number 3 to help her light her candle, and she asks if she's hitting on her because she heard munching box is what killed Michael Douglas. Is Michael Douglas really dead? Anyway, Sam says she wasn't hitting on her, but she was spying on her getting dressed the other day where she noticed her lower back tattoo that said 8/69. That's interesting. But Chanel number 3 just says, look, you seem cool.
But don't ask a lot of questions about me, okay?
Suspicious. All the students gather in the quad with their candles by the podium where Dean Munch gives her speech about how despite rumors there is no killer on campus and it is safe to stay at Wallace University, Tiffany's death was a horrible accident.
She had her head mowed off.
And Boone's death was ruled as a suicide.
Who slits their own throat?
Which is a good point. Seems kind of hard to do and not very common, but I guess it's possible.
We must therefore resist the temptation to, for example, tase freshman Eugene Melman in the genitals.
Dean Munch reiterates that while there is no killer and their campus is as safe as ever, with all the rumors going around, it does no longer feel appropriate to have the school mascot as the Red Devil, so instead they have a new one, Coney. And some guy comes out dressed in a soft serve ice cream costume and is like dancing and stuff, but no one seems to be pleased with this new mascot because it's kind of lame.
You are a disgrace.
So it's the next day and we see Zayde, Grace, and Denise Hempfield go over to a mansion in Bel Air, which belongs to Chanel No. 2's parents, and they sit down and talk with them, asking if they've heard from her, but they have not in weeks. They ask what's going on with their daughter, whose real name we learn is Sonia. They tell them how there's a serial killer on campus and No. 2's been missing, but the good news is she's still posting on Instagram, and Grace shows them that ridiculous Photoshop picture of her with the sunnies on the sunbed, and the parents are like, oh no, it's just what we feared. She's drinking again. You have to understand, girls, our daughter has a disease. She's been in and out of rehab for years. And that they thought that when she got together with Chad, it would even her out a bit, but I guess not.
Frankly, we don't know what he saw in her.
And Grace is like, wait, Chad Radwell? And they're like, yeah, that fratty golf guy. And they go over into Chanel No. 2's room where they find a letter from Chad that he gave to Sonia. We get a little clip where we see Chad read out the letter to Chanel No. 2 saying, I love spending Thanksgiving with you and your family, and I love that your dad's rich.
And I love porking you so much. I hope we can keep on porking forever. You're so freaking hot. I love the amazing faces you make when I'm really taking you there.
And they say romance is dead. No. 2's parents tell the girls to please find their daughter.
Make sure that she never comes home again.
Damn.
So clearly they're fed up with her-ish. So it's the next day and we're back on campus at Wells University and classes have begun. Grace goes to a lecture hall where she finds out that her new film studies professor is in fact her father. And she's like, you teach literature, what are you doing here? And then she realizes he's doing this so that he can watch over her and be overprotective because God forbid your dad cares about you when there's a serial killer on campus. Grace, get over yourself, bitch. I take that back. That was a bit too far.
Look, can't we just make the best of this? Huh?
She's literally the Matt Donovan of the series, guys. I can't help myself. There's always got to be one. Anyway, she storms out and he teaches his lesson anyway, if you can even call it teaching, because he just makes the entire class watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And Gigi sneaks in and watches the film with the class, and when the film is finished, Wes gives his little lesson, which is like a 30-second speech, where he ends it off by saying, and at the end of the day, aren't we all running from the chainsaws in our past? Okay, whatever that means. I know this is just a silly little show, but this ish pisses me off. Because I remember when I was at university, I did a double degree in fine arts and business, and I was majoring in film, and I would get really annoyed when they made us watch a movie for the whole lesson, because I was like, we're paying thousands of dollars for these classes, I can just watch the movie at home, and then we can discuss it in class. It's giving in high school when the teacher would just tell you to read the textbook, like, get up and teach. Of course, I appreciate teachers and university professors, and they do not set the prices of the class, so no disrespect to them. Anyway, at the end of the lesson, Gigi goes over to Wes saying that that was amazing and asks what any of it means, and Wes tells her something about how people's traumas define them, which could be a little Easter egg. Gigi asks him if he wants to join the neighborhood watch party that she's starting, and he agrees, and he asks her out on a salad date because it's a step up from a coffee date without the commitment of a whole meal. They're doing their cutie little romance bit, but then Dean Kathy Munch comes in, and we all know she's got the hots for Wes too. So we got a little love triangle brewing, and she's just checking in on him to see how his first class went, and Gigi's like, he was amazing, and Munch is like, okay, we might have to get you on full time. Oh, and by the way, Gigi, I want to have a word with you. Come over to my tennis court this week. I'm there every day. She really said, let's go to the tennis court and talk it out like, yeah, don't you think that it's boring how people talk? We then get this really weird scene from the point of view of the school's new mascot, Coney, and we get his voiceover talking about how he just loves being a mascot and he's being an absolute menace, touching girls' boobs and booties even though they seem to like it, pushing in front of people in the cafeteria, stealing their money, whatever. He gets to his room and he has created a vision board of all the most popular mascots, and he's like, oh my god, like, this is my journey, this is my life path. But then he hears a noise, turns around and sees that it is the Red Devil with a chainsaw, and the Red Devil decapitates Coney well in his costume. So clearly the Red Devil was like, there's only space for one mascot on this school campus. So it looks like they won't be talking it out on the tennis court anytime soon. Back at Kappa House, Hester sneaks into Chanel's closet to touch her clothes and, fantasize a little bit, but she's caught because she sees Chanel up on the mezzanine. Chanel says, and I quote, this closet is the most precious thing in my life.
It's like a second vagina to me.
So you sneaking in here and rifling through my clothes is a heinous violation.
You have violated my closet, Vad.
And Hester just asks if it's true that Karl Lagerfeld is her uncle and restocks her closet every year. Karl Lagerfeld, the controversial, deceased, iconic, previous creative director for Chanel, of course. Which, by the way, with my nip moment and my pearl moment, I'm trying to channel my Chanel. Anyway, Chanel confirms that Karl Lagerfeld is a close family friend. Her mother actually wore his first surprise skirt. She was 7 years old. And she even has one of Choupette's in vitro kittens. Hester asks who Choupette is.
His Sacre de Belmani cat, of course. Luckiest pussy in the world. Please, mommy, please tell me everything.
Hester asks Chanel what she does with all the clothes from the previous year, and Chanel says that she burns them. She once considered donating them to charity.
But there is something so depressing about a poor person walking around in couture.
I mean, that would be kind of weird and ironic, but damn, you didn't have to burn them. Sell them and donate the money to charity, but of course Chanel's not gonna do that. Hester says that growing up, she wanted to be a fashion girl, but then tragedy struck. And Chanel's like, oh, is that why you're wearing that hideous neck brace? And Hester's like, no, that's because I have severe scoliosis that stunted my growth. I've got scoliosis in my lower back, so give this video a like for my back pain. Anyway, Hester says despite this, she is Chanel's size.
Maybe on a bloaty day.
But then she has a light bulb moment saying that Chad broke up with her because the new Kappa sisters are losers, but if she fixes Hester up, there'll be one less hot mess in this house.
Thank you. Thank you, Mommy. Thank you.
And Hester's looking all excited, and Chanel's like, I'm gonna need some pliers. It's time for a makeover. Ooh, I love a makeover. We then cut to Dean Munch, who's on her tennis court to talk it out like, yeah, with Gigi. And Munch says that while she obviously doesn't condone a serial killer picking off students one by one, the intensity of the experience of being hunted by a psychopath has really bonded the Kappa girls together, but there's more work to be done to reform the sorority and Greek life on campus. She says they need to lead by example for the Kappa girls, so the two of them are going to move into Kappa house for a week. She then goes up to Gigi, tells her,
Do yourself a favor. Stay away from my man. Wes and I are kind of an item, and I call dibs.
Can't call dibs on a person.
So we got a little love triangle brewing here. I do love a love triangle. I love when it triangulates, you know. Pythagorean whatnot. We then get a scene where Chanel number 3 goes inside Sam's room to talk to her.
Hi, Sam.
Jeez. Hi, number 3.
So listen.
Saying that she feels like they're just two peas in a pod and she needs to tell her something. Sam asks if she's a lesbian and she's like, no, but she just wants to be friends. Like good friends. Like best friends. Like soulmates. Number 3 confesses that her family owns a frozen dinner empire and they're like billionaires. Sam's confused, saying that that's not really that bad, but Chanel number 3 says that that's not the secret. The secret is that her dad is not her real dad. See, her mom is crazy and always thinks aliens are talking to her, and the year before she was born, she started corresponding with a bad man in prison because he's responsible for like the death of a lot of people. She figured her mom probably arranged conjugal visits with him, and last year she took a DNA test and found out that this guy is her real father. Sam asks who the guy is, and number 3 says, Charles Manson. Oh! Obviously the famous notorious serial killer from the US of A. Sam doesn't even seem shocked by this, and I'm not sure if that's like an acting choice or if it's just because the actress is a bad actress, but...
Are you serious? That's insane.
Sam asks why number 3 told her if she doesn't want anybody to know, and number 3 says it's because if there's a murderer on the loose and someone found out that her dad was Charles Manson,
Everyone would immediately assume the killer is me, which it isn't.
and when the next murderer happens, she needs an alibi to prove that it couldn't have been her.
Which it won't be because I'm not the killer.
And Sam asks her what she wants her to do, and number 3 says, if and when the next murder happens, I need an alibi to prove it couldn't have been me. And I'll be your alibi. We could be alibuddies.
Alibivities.
Okay, so there's something brewing over here as well. Little lesbian romance, we love that. Chanel number 3 really said gay rights. So later on, all the Kappa sisters are downstairs in the living room, and Grace asks Chanel number 5 if she knew that Chanel number 2 was hooking up with Chad Radwell. Number 5 is shocked, and Grace is like, yeah, can you believe that she would do that to Chanel? And number 5 is like, oh, well, Chanel's a bitch who deserves everything coming to her. I'm just shocked because I was dating Chad too. And number 3 is overhearing them and is like, are you guys talking about Chad Radwell? I dated him last year as well. Grace is gagged that they both dated their best friend's boyfriend behind her back, which I don't know why at this point, but you're not catching on to Chanel's. I don't exactly think loyalty is a big thing for them. But number 5 says, to be fair, they only went on one date, and Chad just made her watch him play with his vintage knife collection the whole time.
I mean, I still slept with him, but my heart wasn't totally in it.
I mean, they still had sex, of course, but her heart wasn't in it. Chanel then comes down the stairs with Hester, who looks very different.
Bitches, gather round.
She's got beautiful hair, jewelry, and an outfit looking very Chanel-like. And the other Chanels and Kappas, especially number 5, freak out at Hester's new look.
Bitches, I'd like you to meet Chanel number 6.
No way, no freaking way.
Number 5 freaks, saying that Chanel can't just make a Kappa pledge of Chanel, and Chanel's like, well, 2 of my Chanels are dead and I'm running out of minions. What am I supposed to do? Grace points out Hester not wearing her neck brace, and she's very stiff, saying that her muscles have atrophied and the pain from not wearing her brace has her on the verge of passing out, but she's never felt prettier or happier in her whole life. Oh, so cute. Number 5 stands up in rage, saying that Chanel has no respect for any of them or the rules of this house, and she doesn't deserve to be president, to which Zeta then gets up and says that she has a point, but Chanel's not fazed and tells them to all line up for tonight's festivities.
We're going to play a game called Cocaine or Dildo.
That sounds fun. Bumping that or pounding that? Oh. But then Dean Munch and Gigi walk in with bags, and Dean Munch says that that sounds fun, but also a little bit like hazing, which is illegal. And Gigi says that she's brought Trivial Pursuit, 90s edition, and Chanel's like, oh, that's all fun and all, but it's a house-only night. And Dean Munch is like, works for us, we're moving in. And everybody's like, what? We then head over to the Dickie Dollar Scholar house where they have a house meeting, and Chad is at a podium talking about their fallen friend Boone. They all start arguing about whether or not Boone was gay and if he killed himself because he was gay.
There's no way Boone was gay. You know, one time we were talking about boobs and how much I love them. And he was like, yeah, dude, I love boobs too.
But Chad is like, Boone was gay, but he didn't commit suicide. They all ask why he thinks this, and Chad says because when the police let him go inside to grab something, he saw the crime scene and there was bloody footprints from the table to the bathroom downstairs and then coming back to the table. So that means that Boone would have had to slit his own throat, then go downstairs to the toilet and then come back up and lie down. So it's very unlikely that he killed himself. Oh my god, look at Chad using his little brain. I mean, to be honest, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, but I'm gonna give him some props. Chad is convinced that the Red Devil killer is now targeting Dickie Dollar Scholars, and he tells his boys that they all need to get roided up, find a bunch of baseball bats, and roam the streets yelling the Red Devil's name until he comes out so they can fight him. They all cheer and he yells, let's go pop some Jim Candy, head down to the White Stallion, get our drink on, and avenge the murder of our brother Boone. Okay, we got a little witch hunt going. Grace then shows up to Pete's dorm room to apologize for accusing him of being the killer, but to be fair, she thinks it's best to be extra cautious right now. She then tells him her theory about Chad Radwell being the killer, because first of all, he's a man whore who slept with half of the girls on this campus, which they can use to build a psychological profile. He clearly sees women as objects, and psychopathic murderers dehumanize their prey. Plus, he has some like weird kind of knife obsession. And Pete says, while he can't stand Chad, does Grace have any motive or proof that Chad was anywhere near the crime scenes? And Grace says that she doesn't, but she does believe that Chad could be the baby from the bathtub. Remembering the flashback from 1995 when the Kappa girls were partying and they left the pregnant woman to bleed out and die in the bathtub, they think that baby could be the killer. Pete then flips around to his computer and says he did some digging on the files he found in Dean Munch's office, and while he couldn't connect any of the names to most of the people in the 1995 Kappa party file, he was able to find one woman by the name of Mandy Greenwald, a Kappa sister who dropped out of university 2 credits shy from graduating the same year the bathtub baby was born. And Pete somehow found out where she lived, they don't really tell us how, and Grace and him agree to have a road trip because she's 6 hours away. So first of all, she's going to Bel Air in California, and now she's doing a road trip 6 hours away. How does she even have time for class? So Pete and Grace are clearly really enthralled in this mystery of who was the bathtub baby, are they the Red Devil, and they need to do some more hunting and investigating. It reminds me of a mystery I'm involved in at the moment, in the mobile game I've been playing lately, June's Journey, who is the sponsor of today's video. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game where you play as Detective June Parker in the glamorous 1920s with a diverse supporting cast of characters. Each scene takes you further through a thrilling murder mystery story where you're trying to solve who killed your sister, all while uncovering all of your family's many secrets and solving your friends' problems all through Journey's witty ways and dialogue. June's Journey is a free to download game where you have to find objects hidden in various fabulously crafted scenes. You can also customize, remodel, and fix your mansion and garden island. There's always something happening through the game as you progress through the story and discover new chapters. You can join clubs and competitions and take part in events where you can earn additional game prizes. The game is just beautifully designed and so smooth and fun, and there's so many aspects to it that I enjoy in addition to the mystery aspect, including all the vintage costuming and styling gameplay, as well as the delicious antique home decor. June's Journey is fun, entertaining, fast-paced, and when I play the game, I'm able to just relax and have a total escapism from reality, which honestly in this day and age, you kinda need. The world's a rough place. I highly recommend you guys go play June's Journey. It is free to download. You can either scan my QR code or click the link in my description and have a buttload of fun. The game is totally accessible, available on iOS and Android mobile devices, as well as PC. Thank you, June's Journey, for sponsoring this video and all the mysteries you provide. And now, let's get back into the mystery of Scream Queen's The Red Devil and the Bathtub Baby. That's very Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe coded, isn't it? Alrighty, y'all, it's witch hunt time, baby. Because it's nighttime now on a quiet, foggy street, and Chad Radwell and his Dickie Dollar Scholar boys are walking around all dressed in white with their baseball bats, yelling out to the Red Devil. And they're doing this to the Backstreet Boys. Backstreet Boys are back, alright. And they do kind of look like a boy band, but they also kind of look like the violent gang from A Clockwork Orange who all dress up in white. So there could be 2 references here. Chad and his boys then start bashing anything that's red. They start bashing a red fire hydrant with their baseball bats. They then see some old red car and they're like, that's probably the Red Devil's car. And when they finish completely destroying it, they're like, wait a second, are we sure that was the Red Devil's car? But then they hear the sound of a chainsaw and they see the Red Devil in the street. They charge towards him, but then they hear another chainsaw behind them, and it is another Red Devil with a chainsaw. So there are 2 Red Devils. This is our first official reveal and confirmation that there's more than one Red Devil. So far just 2, which is very similar, probably inspired by the reveal that there were 2 ghost faces in the original 1996 Scream movie. Anyway, they also trying to fight the Red Devils, who are just cutting their baseball bats with their chainsaws, and one of the Dicky boys, Caulfield Mount Herman, notices Chad is laying on the ground and the Red Devil's about to kill him, so he charges towards the Red Devil with his baseball bat, but the Red Devil just cuts up his baseball bat with his chainsaw, and then cuts off one of his arms, and then cuts off his other arm, and then hits him over the head, and he's just laying there with his 2 arms decapitated. It's very silly, he doesn't even react, and his arms are just gushing blood, and there's really no way you should be able to survive that, but he does. But anyway, after this scene, it is time to put an attack symbol on Caulfield, as well as Chad. I don't know if I should put an attack symbol on the other Dicky Dollar Scholar boys. Maybe? Yeah, I think they all probably got attacked by the Red Devil, I guess you could say. So 1 for Roger, 1 for Dodger, and 1 for Earl Grey. But no one died just yet. Another update to the mind map is I did add some green lines from Chad to all of the various women that he has slept with. We then head over to Denise's car, where she is driving slowly and she finds Zayde and offers her a lift back to the Kappa house. Zayde gets inside and Denise quickly puts handcuffs on her, and Zayde's like, "What are you doing?" And Denise is like, "Catching a killer, that's what I'm doing."
Are you crazy? I'm gonna be late for dinner. But you gonna be right on time for justice.
She says, "You are what we call in the business a person of extreme murderous interest." And Zayde clocks her, saying that's not even a real thing and she's not even a real detective. But Denise says to tell it to the judge because she's found evidence to prove that Zayde is the killer.
I know you thought I was on your side, but I've been on to you.
Exhibit A. She pulls out a vote for Zayde pin, saying that Zayde plans on challenging Chanel as Kappa House president. And what better way to knock off the competition than murder in the first. Denise then pulls out Exhibit B, which is a CD she found in Zayde's room with a receipt from the Best Buy that her friend Chandel used to work at. But Zayde's like, "I never even met Chandel. Besides, I was inside Kappa House when the Red Devil killed her." And Denise says that brings her to Exhibit C. What happens if she is working with somebody else to kill people? That would really throw Secure Enforcement Solutions off the case. While she was in the house, her murderous cohort was stabbing her friend Chandel in the neck. And while she was buried in the backyard, her murderous cohort mowed off the head of that deaf girl.
Drops the mic.
This is insane.
No.
And Denise says, "No, what's insane is what you tweeted to the creator of the hit show, How to Get Away with Murder." And she pulls out a printout of a tweet Zayde made from 6 months ago saying, "@Shonda Rhimes, if Annalise Keating wanted to get away with murder, she'd really have a partner in crime. #cahoots.
That's not evidence. I just like the show.
#cahoots.
But Denise says there's more, and she shows her Exhibit E, and she pulls a plastic bag from the back seat with a chainsaw, and she says, "You sleep with a chainsaw under your bed."
I can explain that.
Explain it to the DA, soul sister.
But Zayde says that her grandma sent her that chainsaw for protection when they confiscated their tasers at the gas station. Denise frees Zayde from the handcuffs and says she's gonna let her go for now.
Crazy as hell.
I got my eye on you.
And it's just really funny. I mean, it gets a little old at some point because Denise is just repeatedly accusing Zayde of being killer throughout this whole show. Now, when it comes to her evidence, I will say that some of it is a little damning. I will say. The tweet, probably not. The CD from Best Buy, maybe. I mean, if you're looking to a connection to Chandel, because so far there isn't one. But sleeping with a chainsaw under your bed, Zayde, what are people supposed to think? Especially in this episode, when the Red Devil is attacking people with a chainsaw. Anyway, so back in Kappa House, Wes and Gigi are having their salad date, but Munch is there.
Miss Caldwell and I are roomies now. You'll forgive me if I'm feeling a little overprotective.
But really, we know it's just because she wants Wes. But Gigi thanks Dean Munch for bringing all of these fun sauces. Which kind of adds to her being childish, you know, stuck in the past, what her therapist said about her trauma that trapped her in the 90s, and that's why she dressed that way. What else happened in the 90s? Upstairs, we see Zayde in her bedroom practicing whipping her chainsaw out from under her bed. One thing about Zayde is she's gonna be prepared. Be prepared, be prepared. This lesson should be shared. Shout out to the goat from Hoodwinked. Anyway, Zayde goes downstairs walking past the dining room, and Wes asks where they're going, and Zayde's like, "Oh, I'm going to my philosophy study group." "But what do you mean we? It's just me." And he's like, "Wait, I thought Grace was with you." And he pulls out his phone and he's like, "The GPS says that she's here." And Zayde's like, "You're tracking her phone? That's so not cool." And he's like, "Oh my god, she must have turned it off." So he goes in another room to call Grace, and we see that Grace is with Pete at a gas station filling up, because remember, they're traveling 6 hours away to go find that Mandy lady. But Grace lies and says that she's at the library. Later upstairs, Dean Munch and Gigi are going to bed.
Dean Munch, that nightgown is amazing.
Thank you.
And she also says that she needs to sleep with a white noise machine, and she puts it on, but it's just playing whale distress noises, because she says, and I quote, "I find it soothing." Gigi asks if she can turn on the volume, but Munch says that it doesn't have a volume setting, but it does have other sounds, and she switches through them. She first plays Baboon Attack. And then a decompressed aeroplane crash. And Gigi says she's not going to be able to sleep with all that noise. So Munch is like, look, I'll just set it to 1980s slasher flick and we'll call it a night. Which is really funny because, like I've said many times, Jamie Lee Curtis, who plays Dean Munch, was the star of a famous 1980s slasher flick as Laurie Strode in Halloween. Shout out where my Michael Myers fans at. But Gigi just goes downstairs to sleep on the couch, and we notice that the door in the living room is open. And could that be what Dean Munch wanted all along? Because then the Red Devil shows up with a chainsaw, and Gigi screams. She's trying to duck and dodge the chainsaw, and the Red Devil is swinging it all about. And Wes, who's sleeping in his parked car outside, hears Gigi screams. He runs inside and tries to fight off the Red Devil, who cuts his arm with the chainsaw. But then Gigi manages to fly kick the Red Devil in the face, and he falls over the couch. Honestly, the Red Devil kind of sucks. Like, you have a chainsaw and you got fly kicked in the face. I digress. But anyways, the Red Devil waving around a wiring chainsaw is clearly a reference and homage to Leatherface from 1984's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which of course was also the film that Wes played earlier on in this episode. So maybe that's an indication he's the second Red Devil, since he seems to love chainsaws. The Chanels and Kappa sisters all come running downstairs, but Gigi yells at them to go call 911, and when her and Wes look behind the couch, the Red Devil is nowhere to be seen, just leaving his chainsaw behind. Then Dean Munch runs downstairs asking what's going on, but Wes picks up the chainsaw and points her towards Dean Munch, saying not to take another step because she's the killer. Oh, okay, we got some accusations. This is kind of the point of the show where we're really starting to get a lot of different motives and potentials as to who could be the Red Devil, and now we know that there's at least two. But anyway, guys, that is the end of this episode, Chainsaw. It's not one of my favorites in the season, but it's definitely a fun one, and getting to see the Red Devil switch it up with a chainsaw was kind of fun. We only had one death in this episode, which was Coney, and I obviously don't have Coney on the board because it's not really a character we ever see, and we don't even know who was under the costume. But the creators are sticking to what they said about one character dying each episode at the hands of the Red Devil, although this one kind of feels like a cop-out because it's not really a character we know. But anyways, after that, let's get into our next episode of season 1 of Scream Queens, episode 4, titled Haunted House. So this episode begins with a little montage of Chanel showing us her Chanel-oween, which is her version of Halloween, where she sends her Instagram followers really awful gifts like fake severed heads and foots and rotten fruit and whatnot. And this is very reminiscent, if not a complete remake and parody, of Taylor Swift's Swiftmas that she used to do back in like 2014. I'll include some side-by-side clips to show you how similar they are.
That is a lot of the stuff I went shopping and got yesterday.
I went shopping with my comatose grandmother's credit card and bought presents.
There's a card.
Show it to us.
Look at her writing and everything.
It's her writing and everything. You are so devastatingly mediocre and adorable. You are so devastatingly adorable. They're writing jack-o'-lantern. This box is just filled with blood.
There's this wonderful girl named Steph who I've met before, but she has a tiny young son who she posts videos of all the time.
I had no idea we're coming. There's this girl named Susan who's always posting sad videos of herself online, and she lives someplace horrible.
Merry early Christmas.
Thank you. Surprised us so much.
So obsessed with this necklace, I'm obsessed with the headband. I can't stop smelling.
So much.
So not only did Ryan Murphy have a character called Deaf Taylor Swift, which one of you pointed out in a comment is kind of like making fun of Taylor Swift's music by saying her biggest fan is deaf, ergo her music's not good or whatever, and then he had her head mown off, and now he has Chanel-oween making fun of Taylor Swift. So Ryan Murphy is clearly not beating the Taylor Swift beef allegations, which I'm pretty sure I read somewhere, I think I said this in the last video, was because she like wouldn't let him have a lot of her songs on Glee or something like that. I don't really know. But moving on. So our first proper scene in this episode starts off where we ended off in the last episode with Wes and Gigi accusing Dean Cathy Munch of being the Red Devil killer during the whole chainsaw fiasco. And we see Dean Munch is getting interviewed by Detective Chisholm. They've wrapped up and he totally believes her story and invites her to the local precinct's pig roast, and she said she wouldn't miss it. And Wes and Gigi are so pissed off because they're so convinced that Cathy Munch is the killer. And she's like, and I quote, "Do you mean to suggest that I changed out of my nightgown, strapped myself into a skin-tight pleather Red Devil costume, climbed climbed out a second-story dormer and shimmied down to the ground with a chainsaw before entering a window I had left open, tried to kill you, then leapt out the window, climbed back up the wall, changed back in my nightgown, and ran downstairs all in the course of about 90 seconds? Does not sound very plausible, I will give Dean Kathy Munch that. However, her hypotheticals and hyperbole, as we have come to see, are very hyper-specific. But this whole situation gets interrupted when Denise Hempfield runs in, out of breath. She catches it and tells them about some golf frat douche bro who got his arms chopped off with a chainsaw by the Red Devil, and that douche frat bro, whatever, as we know, is Caulfield Mount Herman. And Denise tells Detective Shizen that if he checks the fingerprints on that chainsaw, he's gonna find out that it was that Zayde girl. So she's still on that train, and she is so happy that she's one step ahead of the popo.
Units, we have a possible dismemberment.
Dismemberment!
And she then starts praying up to the sky in heaven to her friend Chandel, apologizing for leaving her car on the side of the road, but says that she will avenge her. And yeah, Denise is pretty ridiculous, but she's not that far off the cuff because it stands to reason with logical deduction that she found a chainsaw under Zayde Williams' bed. A bunch of people got attacked by the Red Devil using a chainsaw, and one of Denise's theories was that Zayde was in cahoots with someone, and we also got revealed that night that there is not just one, but there is two Red Devils. We then catch up with Grace and Pete, who have finished their 6-hour road trip to go meet with one of the girls from the 1995 Kappa party, and I'm not sure why they thought it was pertinent to get dressed into their Halloween costumes during this investigation, because they are dressed up as Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey from How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days for Halloween, an iconic film. Of course, we love rom-coms from the 2000s. I will say Pete is doing a really obnoxious Matthew McConaughey accent, or impression, I guess, throughout this whole scene, so...
Go in there, you let me do all the talking.
It is a classic.
This is a lovely home. Key, now you may ask. A key to what?
Just know that that's happening and I endured it. So these two walk up to the trailer in said woods, knock on the door, where a woman by the name of Mandy Greenwald answers, and when she finds out that they're from Wallace University, she instantly knows that they are there to talk about the bathtub incident that happened at that party in 95, and they ask how, and she says she's been a bit of a recluse, but she's been waiting 20 years for someone to come talk to her about it. They go into her trailer where they see her pet squirrel, and she offers them some lunch, saying she has meat today, and pulls out of her toaster oven some roadkill. So she really is off the grid. Grace and Pete then start questioning Mandy about that night under the guise that they're doing an investigative journalism report about the history of Kappa and that she'll remain anonymous, so she whips into her story and we get transported back into that 1995 flashback to see more about what happened that night with the bathtub incident. So Munch tells the Kappa girls who want to call the police that they can't, because if she does, they'll all get arrested for negligent homicide for leaving the pregnant girl to bleed out in the bathtub while they were all too busy dancing to TLC's Waterfalls downstairs. Miss Bean, with her fierce bob, says that they need to dispose of the body, and she has everything she needs in the kitchen to chop bathtub girl out and turn her body pieces into sausages that she can sell at the local Sunday farmers market.
Or I can just feed him these bitches for dinner.
So Miss Bean had a bit of wherewithal with her. She stood on her ground back in the day. I guess Chanel broke her to a little pulp, because in present day we saw she really didn't stand up for herself.
Miss Bean, go organize the trash. Miss Bean, let's hit it! Bean, I said let's hit it!
Great. Honestly, Miss Bean, you better stand up. Although I suppose it's too late considering you had your face fried off. Munch just goes to the more logical, easy conclusion, saying that they'll just have to bury the girl's body, and she takes all of the other girls into her car with hoods over their heads so they don't know where she's taking them, and she makes them dig a grave, and while they're standing in it, Kathy Munch says that they're all gonna have to leave school immediately and avoid contact with each other ever again. But the girls ask, what about the dead pregnant girl's parents or the baby's father? What happens if they come looking for her? They can't just pretend that nothing happened. But Kathy Munch says, and I quote, "Just leave the details to me. I'm the administration's liaison for Greek life on campus, and if a young sorority pledge dies under my so-called supervision, my career is over. Her dreams are as good as dead, but mine are as bright as ever. And I'm protecting all of you. I'm protecting your families, your future. You may think I'm a monster tonight, but years from now, when you have lived a boring, painfully uncreative life in a home filled with pottery barn sofas and no integrity, you'll see me for what I really am."
Your guardian angel.
So the Kappa sisters dump dead bathtub girl's body like a rag doll into the grave, put on their hoods, and get back in Dean Munch's car. And we go back to present day where Mandy says that she left school the next day, telling her parents that she was just too stressed out. Other girls changed their names and moved away. One girl killed herself, she heard. Another one institutionalized. One's doing pretty good. She's on Fox News. So how good is she really? And she goes on saying Munch put the fear of God into them that night. She's the devil, that one. Seems that way. They're really trying to set up Dean Munch as a potential for the Red Devil. We've been getting a lot of Shady Boots edits of her. We're seeing that her behavior is less than savory and that she has some pretty questionable morals. And let's not forget, she is extremely integral to the cover-up of the bathtub incident. And right now, our prime theory, according to Grace and Pete, is that the Red Devil killer from 20 years ago is one of the students at the school. Their current theory being Chad Radwell. However, their theory comes crashing down when Mandy says that she saw that baby and it was a girl. She knows her peas and carrots. And they are completely distraught because they're like, dang, I thought we got it. So now they have to go back to the drawing board. And one thing about Grace and Pete, I mean, I could say many things. They really just get one little shred of what they deem to be proof or evidence, which is really just a minute theory, and they run with it. They're like, okay, so there's this bathtub baby, and we heard that it's a boy, and it was from 20 years ago. Oh my god, it has to be Chad Radwell. They have literally no other evidence or proof. But you know what? We're just all spitting darts at a dartboard right now. We then have a scene at the local grind coffee shop where Earl Grey has met up with Zayday, and they both talk about how they want to be the change in the world, aka the change in Greek life, and he wants to help Zayday with her campaign to become Kappa president and take down Chanel. So over at Kappa House, the girls are carving pumpkins for Chanel's Chanel-oween. She then goes through her approval process. We get to see all the Kappa sisters' pumpkins, which are all very like creative and weird.
My pumpkin's drunk.
Approved. Mine's Charles Manson.
Love.
Mine's Chad Radwell.
Fine.
And we get to Grace, who of course just has a boring jack-o'-lantern. And then we get to Zayday's pumpkin, where she has carved out, "Yes, I can." And everyone's like, now what is that all about? And Zayday lets us know that for Halloween, she is hosting a haunted house to raise money for sickle-cell-anemia. And today is the day that she declares her run for president for Kappa House.
What?
Chanel's obviously not happy about this and gives a speech about how Zayday will lose and she will ruin her reputation. Big reputation. Ooh, you and me, we got big reputations. Ah, and you heard about me. Ooh, you got some big enemies. But Zayday is super confident that she has a chance to win because according to her, everyone in Kappa House knows that Chanel is just a stuck-up little sociopath. And let's not forget, everyone in this room has actually witnessed her murder someone. And she's just one phone call away from calling the local news about it. But Chanel sticks to her guns, denying murdering Miss Bean, and says if she's gonna kill anyone in this house, it's gonna be Zayday, and then she storms off. Later that night, in Chanel's closet at 3 a.m., the other Chanels walk in to check on her because they're concerned for her mental health, and she's sitting there sulking, sharpening her knives. She then starts waving her knives around, saying that a sitting Kappa president has not lost office to a freshman in 150 years. I'm responsible for the worst pledge class in Kappa history, and now Zayday's gonna win because we live in the age of Obama? Oh my god. Wow. Okay, Chanel. Well, we're not surprised. We knew she was racist after that whole comment about the marker. And also, this is very telling. My condolences to those of you in the US. It's a rough time over there. What I'm sure we would all do to be back in the age of Obama.
I'll lose everything! Where will I go? Who will I be?
Anyway, number 3 and number 5 try and talk Chanel off of this ledge, saying that they just need to throw another party to compete with Zayday's haunted house for charity. Chanel suggests maybe doing a haunted pumpkin patch, and the Chanels then throw out various diseases that they could raise money for their charity, and they toss back and forth about them, and finally land on one called hairy black tongue, which you get from not having the most basic form of oral hygiene. Not sure if that's something you want to go for. Maybe go with the disease that people have no control over, but I digress. Maybe they just care about low socioeconomical classes because, I mean, dentists are expensive. We all know that. I just finally was able to afford going to the dentist after 2.5 years of not being able to, and I had to get 5 fillings. So this one cut close to home. So back inside the trailer in the woods, we see Mandy watching TV when she hears a knock at the door. She goes to answer it. She then locks the door, grabs a baseball bat as she hears scurrying and racketing and banging outside. She goes into her bathroom, flicks on the light, and sees in the mirror behind her the Red Devil, who stabs her and kills her. So R.I.P. Mandy, that was a short-lived journey for you. I'm not sure if I should put an X on the past version of her or not. That's TBD. Seems a bit excessive, and when I do my death countdown at the end of the series, we want to be accurate, so I'll leave that at that. Over at a graveyard, Chad is stroking some gravestones, talking to the corpses about how he bets that they used to be so hot. He unbuttons his pants, about to get a little nasty in both ways, when he gets interrupted by Hester, aka Chanel number 6. He asks what he's doing, and Chad admits that sometimes he likes to come to the cemetery.
When I find a gravestone I like, I get turned on and I rub one out to it.
So this just further proves Chad's obsession with, I was gonna say necromancy, but necromancy is bringing someone back from the dead. What is it when you like to sleep with corpses?
I get it. I get you more than anyone.
She also finds the thought of dead bodies arousing. Chad then goes on this little rant about how he thinks that their generation has had it too easy. There's no awesome diseases randomly killing people, or wars for them to witness horrible things that can't be unseen. Wow, Chad, if only you knew what was gonna happen in the 2020s with Corona and all the other various wars going on right now. Our generation has seen it. He goes on saying that he doesn't even feel like he's living, and the only time he really feels anything is when he's thinking about chopping up a body. So more clues that Chad could be the Red Devil. Hester says she feels the same way as Chad, bad. And yet here he is doing nothing about it, saddled up with an uptight girlfriend who freaked out for no other reason than the fact that he just wanted to fantasize about having sex with her lifeless corpse. The way Lea Michele is delivering these lines is so good. She is so good at being creepy.
I want everything Chanel has, and that includes you.
She says Chanel's over now that Zeta is going to win Kappa House president, and when she does, she's pretty sure vice presidency is going to fall into her hands. Okay, Hester, not sure where you got all this confidence. I guess being Chanel number 6 really gave her that boost, and she has been acting a lot differently since she got that makeover, but what's a girl to do? Sometimes a makeover can really change your vibe. New look, who dis? And I get that. I'm a different person now that I have bangs, and that's just a fact. But anyway, Hester continues saying, and when Zeta just happens to fall down a flight of steps or drown in a retention pond,
then you'll once again be porking Kappa's top bitch.
Ooh, okay, Hester, laying down the line. Chad's getting turned on saying he needs to do it right now on top of this grave, but Hester says it's not scary enough. He should keep his phone on, and if he's lucky, maybe in the next couple days he'll get a call from someone with a very scary location of where to meet.
And maybe she'll let you in the back door.
Okay, so clearly Hester is insane and creepy and is talking about death and killing Zayde, and we saw how enthusiastic she was about getting rid of Chanel number 2's body, so Hester's clearly another suspect of the Red Devil. But in other good news, Chad finally found somebody to match his freak. And another one of Wes's sad excuses for a film studies class, his students have just finished watching up a horror movie for the whole lesson. After everyone leaves, Grace storms in to confront her dad about her mother, asking why he never talks about her and that it's pretty convenient she died in a fire along with any record of her or her birth certificate. He's really confused about what she's getting at. And
why am I the only person in Kappa without a mother?
Don't understand what you're getting at. Are you on bath salts?
Which I don't know if this is a play on the whole bathtub incident, but either way, it's kind of funny. Grace asks why all of these killings started happening when she came to campus. And Grace, you clearly have main character syndrome, girl. You need to pipe down, not everything's about you. And finally, she gets to her point, asking if her mother was the pregnant lady who died in the bathtub, if she was the baby that was born at the Kappa party in 1995. Wes says of course not, she was born in a hospital, he was there. But Grace doesn't believe him and says that if she finds out that he's lying, she will never speak to him again, and then she leaves. Okay, whatever, Grace. Everything's about you. The world revolves around you. Anyway, when she leaves, she gets a text from Pete saying to meet him at the house on 53 Shady Lane. So Grace walks into this abandoned, creepy house where she gets a fright from Pete. She says not to do that while there's a serial killer on campus and asks what they're even doing here, and he says to find out more about that baby. He then gets his karma when they both get a fright from Zayde and Earl Grey. Grace and Pete ask Zayde and Earl Grey what they're doing there, and Zayde says that they're there to scope out the place because this is where she wants to host her haunted house. All four of them then get a fight when Denise Hempfield shows up, and she's there to stop this party because this house is actually haunted because she did research at the library about some lady called the Hag from Shady Lane. Turns out Pete was doing some research too, and they both share some information and we get some flashbacks of the story. So legend says about 20 years ago that there was this lady who lived in this house who wailed about her dead children, and no one ever saw her face, but many neighbors report seeing a woman in a black cloak moaning and screaming and stealing from their trash cans. Back in present day, they're all in this room filled with creepy dolls, saying that the Hag was stealing toys from people's houses, and the year that these reports were from was from 1995, aka bathtub baby year. It all comes back to 1995. I just wanna go back to 1999. Take a ride to my old neighborhood. Zayde tells everyone not to touch anything because this could be one of the rooms for the haunted house, and Denise is looking a little suspicious and asks Zayde if they can talk in private, and so they do so. Denise asks Zayde what she's got planned for this haunted house, and Zayde just says a bunch of goofy things to raise money for her charity, but Denise says,
more like raise the body count with murder.
It's the perfect way for her to kill people without anyone noticing. She's still onto her. A man had his arms chopped off with a chainsaw, and she knows that Zayde owns a chainsaw. But Zayde asks Denise why she has it out for her, and then accuses her of being the killer, saying she knows about how she went to Wallace University and pledged Kappa. We then see a flashback of Denise at Kappa Rush being mistreated and dealing with racism from said Kappa bitches. And it's kind of ridiculous because this flashback is supposed to be set in 1988, which would have been like 35 years prior to this scene, and they didn't even try and call a younger Denise, but guess they ran out of the budget. Anyway, Zayde continues saying that she feels like Denise has it out for her because back in her day, Kappa wouldn't accept women of color. So now she looks at her and sees everything she could have been. Well, she is going to become the first black president of Kappa House.
And that's just gonna chap your hide. Make you want to kill, huh?
But Denise isn't having any of this and just wishes Zayday well with her haunted house and her murdering, but to remember that she's got her eyes on her. Damn, these two and their beef. It kind of annoyed me when I first watched this because I was like, Denise, have some other suspects. She's so hell-bent on Zayday. But at the same time, I guess that's kind of good considering that Grace and Pete are constantly flip-flopping with their suspects, but you do need a couple, okay? You gotta exhaust all your options. Everyone is a suspect and everyone is suspicious. You heard that? So the Chanels, that's Chanel number 1, Chanel number 3, Chanel number 5, and Chanel number 6, aka Hester, are all walking around the university cafeteria handing out flyers to Chanel's haunted pumpkin patch, and she's telling all the students that she has it on good authority that the Red Devil is gonna kill someone at Zayday's haunted house. And number 5 asks how she knows that, and she's like, well, he'd be stupid not to. If he did, somebody would just see the dead body and think it was a costume or a decoration. Which is a fair point. They all get exhausted from their campaigning and suggest taking a little lunch break. And we see their lunch and they are eating cotton balls dipped in ketchup. And Hester's like, guys, while I'm flattered that I get to join your no food lunch, won't we die if we eat these cotton balls? And number 3 says only if the cotton balls cause a blockage in their intestinal tract, but that's what the sauce is for, lubrication.
And it gives you that wonderfully full feeling without all of the calories.
So yeah, we're playing up this whole parody of like eating disorders and stuff, which obviously it's dark, it's triggering. I myself have suffered with eating disorders, but I am recovered, so this kind of stuff doesn't bother me. And I think it's okay, in my opinion, because it's so beyond dumb. Like, from my experience in eating disorder recovery and, you know, group therapy and all that kind of stuff and talking to other people, I've never known people to eat cotton balls, so I think it's just like a parody on... I don't even know. I don't know how to talk about this one. It's not funny. It's kind of just one of those jokes that are in there, but they play on it a lot in these like next couple episodes. There's a lot of like this like no eating or eating cotton balls or like eating disorder jokes, whatever. And just to be crystal clear, I mean, I feel like it's without saying, but don't try this at home, okay? Anyway, Chanel then says that Hester, or as she calls her, Pooh Belly, is right. She's tired of depriving herself of joy and sustenance, and for what? So a boy will like her? Guys can be as porky as they want and they still like them. She may die at the end of a serial killer's blade, but she refuses to die hungry. And she suggests that why don't they go get a pizza instead? And they go to do so, but then some frat douches come over and start hitting on them really gross and aggressively. And Chanel gives a little speech inspired by her women's studies class, saying that there's a killer on this campus murdering women, and when they treat them like meat, they're no better than him. And that kind of attitude is what gives girls eating disorders from the age of 10. And the frat guys are like, oh, okay, so what you're saying is we keep you skinny and hard. Why don't you lighten up and give us a smile? And then the Chanel start beating them up, rightfully so, because those men are disgusting. So later that afternoon, Chad's walking on the street in front of the Shady Lane house when Hester, aka Chanel number 6, I need to figure out what I'm going to start calling her. I think I'm just going to call her Hester from now on. I can't with this nonsense. Anyway, she says that she doesn't know how Chad got her number, but she likes his initiative that she texted him here to meet, and he's confused saying she texted him. And she's like, mysterious. Makes it extra scary and sexy. And then Hester says a line that always cracks me up, pun intended.
Do you think you're man enough to take me inside that house and attack my crack?
Oh god. The two of them go into the house, but they start noticing an awful smell and a bunch of lit candles, which is weird because it's 2 hours away until the haunted house, but you know what? It gives them plenty enough time to pork. Hester then walks away and her voice echoes through the house as Chad follows her into a room where she is standing next to what she thinks is a wax-size live figure of Miss Bean with her face burnt off. She starts stroking her leg, but then her finger goes into her leg. Out comes a bunch of pus. And she's like, oh my god, it's not fake, that's really her. They both start screaming, and Chad falls back against a Murphy bed, which then falls down with Chandel's dead body. They run and scream into another room where they find the school's new mascot, Coney, hung against the wall, decapitated. They then open a door to another room trying to find the exit, where they find Chanel number 2's dead body, and they finally make it to the exit outside screaming when Mandy's body flings back down in front of them dead as well, and they run off screaming. Throughout the past 3 episodes, everybody's been wondering where all these dead bodies have gone, and clearly the Red Devil stole them, elaborately set them up in this haunted house to spook everybody out. Super creepy, super gross. So we catch up with Hester and Chad, who are at the Grind coffee shop reeling about what they just saw, and Chad says they should go to the cops, but they can't because he's still rocking a mad side pipe and they'll think he has something to do with it. So Chad is still turned on, he still has an erection, and why were you scared? Why were you screaming if you're turned on? Or maybe the scarage and screamification made his situation stand to attention. They say that they have to warn everybody and stand up and scream to everybody in the coffee house that they should not go to the haunted house on Shady Lane. There are real dead bodies bodies there. But then all the other students are like, whoa, real dead bodies? That's so cool. Everybody, let's go to the haunted house on Shady Lane. So it's nighttime now, and Zayday, Grace, Pete, and Earl Grey have showed up to the haunted house, shocked at how many people showed up, but they overhear some girls saying, oh my god, those bodies seem so real, that's so gross. And they go into the house where they see all of the real dead bodies, freaking out, saying that they have to call the cops. But Pete says not to, because let's not forget, they were in the house when Chanel killed Miss Bean, so that makes them an accessory to murder. And Zayday's like, no, screw this, I'm calling the cops. And she storms off outside of the house to get some quiet and calls 911. And the guy's like, oh, you talking about that house on Shady Lane? That's so cool. And she's like, no, those are real dead bodies. And he's like, well, of course there are. It's a haunted house. What do you expect? Do not waste taxpayers' money and time by making false 911 calls. But Zayday's like, no, this is real. And we then see the Red Devil is behind her in the shadows, and he grabs her and kidnaps her. So our girl Zayday has been kidnapped. So obviously that's not a death, but I mean, being kidnapped is an attack, so I'm putting an attack symbol on Zayday. Back at Kappa House, Grace is telling Munch and the cops that they need to file a missing persons report for Zayday. And Wes implores that they need to shut down the campus, but Detective Shizm says that there is no proof that these bodies are related to anything that's going on campus. And Munch says, yes, it's an off-campus house and the dead people are not students. She then goes over to the victims, one of which being Miss Bean, and Chanel fake cries.
Not Miss Bean, no!
They were very close.
Shondell, not a student. Some identified woman, not a student. But Grace points out that the mascot Coney and Chanel number 2 were in fact students. So what do you say about that, Dean Munch? She's really clearly trying to avoid doing anything and everything about the serial killer on campus. Wes threatens to go to the media if Munch doesn't shut down the campus, and she suggests that all of them adults should go into the kitchen and really talk this over. So the Chanels all go upstairs, but Grace stops them and says that they need to create a search party for Zayday, but Chanel's not interested in doing that, saying that maybe Zayday should have considered the fact that she was going to get kidnapped before betraying her, and she leaves. So getting nowhere with the Chanels, Grace then goes over to Pete, saying that she went to the police headquarters to the Records and Identification Division, and the earliest reports of the Wailing Hag from Shady Lane date back to November of 1995. But before that, there's nothing. But just 3 weeks earlier, there were 2 reported thefts. One from a convenience store about a woman in black who came in and stole diapers, and another from a milkman who said that a woman in a black robe stole a crate of milk from the back of his truck. But he couldn't get a good look at her due to her, quote, all-around haggy nature of person. And this was 1 month after the bathtub incident, and suddenly the hag of Shady Lane is stealing milk and diapers. She was clearly taking care of the babies. It's just too big of a coincidence. They've got to find out what happened to that baby, and they got to figure out who that woman was, and that will lead them to the Red Devil killer and help them find Zayday. And for once, I will give it to Grace and Pete with their investigation. This makes sense. This is logical. It's pretty clear that the hag of Shady Lane has something to do with the Kappa babies. I'll give you that. 1 point. We then cut to a flashback 20 years ago in 1995 in the Shady Lane house, and we see the hag of Shady Lane in a black hoodie wailing in a rocking chair, and it is revealed that the hag of Shady Lane is none other than Gigi Cladwell. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Gigi Cladwell is now a person of interest, and let's not act too surprised, because in the first episode of the show, we did find out that the reason that Gigi wears exclusively clothes from the 90s is because her therapist says that she had a traumatic experience that forever trapped her psyche in the 90s. And what else happened in the 90s? The bathtub incident. I mean, let's be honest. This whole bathtub nonsense, it's really not that complicated, and you can really connect the dots way before Grace and Pete. But I think that's part of the humor, is that they think they're so smart, but really they're really slow. They're really slow. But anyway, that's it on this episode. There weren't any crazy references to horror movies or other campy films or anything like that, but it was a really fun episode. My favorite part of the episode's definitely being the whole Hester and Chad storyline with the grave and the discovering of the dead bodies on the haunted house. It's really, really funny. And if you're enjoying this video so far, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, if you want more videos from me. Without further ado, let's get into the next episode, season 1, episode 5 of Scream Queens, titled Pumpkin Patch. So this episode begins with the Chanels, that's number 1, number 3, number 5, and number 6, descending the staircase to meet with Chanel's party planner, Cliff Wu. Hester asks who that is, and Chanel says that he did her Sweet 16. The theme was, let them eat cake. So Chanel writes, so her dad basically bought this foreclosed McMansion down the street, and just 500 of her closest friends came dressed in 18th century attire.
And then at midnight, we just burnt the house down. When the firefighters came, they were actually strippers, and they put out the fire with champagne.
Sounds like my kind of party. Where was my invite, Chanel? So then Cliff Wu shows his diorama of the artisanal pumpkin patch with statues of demonic cherubs, which will be peeing out vodka and Red Bull, and then a corn maze. Chanel is really furious because she doesn't want a corn maze. She specifically asked for the exact replica of the snow maze from The Shining with knee-deep snowdrifts. But Cliff says it would have taken them over budget.
I told you money was no object. I am gross rich, Cliff.
Now get her exactly what she asked for. So he leaves and goes back to the drawing board. And honestly, you can't knock a girl for having a vision. And if she tells you to do something, you better get it done. You're a party planner. Is that not your job? After Cliff leaves, Chanel asks her minions about the music and what they have organized. So Hester, aka Chanel number 6, says she got Maroon 5. Number 3 says she tried to get Fergie, but ended up accidentally calling Fergie Duchess of York. So now both Fergies are coming, the pop star and the Duchess. So dumb. But at least she pulled through, because number 5 says that she couldn't get Led Zeppelin because one of them died or something. Chanel is really pissed off at her.
Damn it, number 5, do you have any idea what's at stake here?
Saying she won't win this Kappa election if this Black Hairy Tongue Pumpkin Patch Maze concert isn't the biggest thing to ever happen on campus. She will lose the Kappa House presidency and Chad Radwell will dump her yet again. But Chanel number 5 says that it isn't her fault that some guy died in the 70s, but Chanel doesn't appreciate the back talk and is like, excuse me, then whose fault is it? Mine? I'm tired of the excuses, number 5. I'm tired of your sad sack, I'm a total downer all the time shtick. I ask you to reunite one legendary rock and roll band,
And you're all like, oh, some guy died. I'm over it.
Honestly, like, Chanel shitting on number 5 will never not be funny to me. I don't know why. It hits it out of the park every time. Anyway, the Chanels all then go up to Chanel's closet, where she shows them their costumes for Chanel-Halloween. So Chanel is dressed up like Jackie Kennedy, and the other Chanels will be dressed up as other wives of murdered US presidents. Number 5 isn't too happy about being Mary Todd Lincoln, but Chanel says, well, she is a weird psycho lunatic who's probably gonna end up in an asylum somewhere staring at a wall.
You're a Mary Todd Lincoln if ever there was one. That's it!
And this pisses number 5 right off.
I can't take this anymore! That is such a Mary Todd Lincoln thing to say.
She's done with Chanel and she means it. And Chanel asks her, and I quote, do you mean it, Chanel number 5? Because you scream, I'm done with you, kind of a lot. And yet, you're still standing here. I think you know you have a good thing going here. You get to bask in my starlight as I do all the work, and you get to grumble behind my back about how disrespected you are. Well, you know what you can do? You can either dress up like Mary Todd Lincoln and help me win this presidency, or you can pack your things and leave. There's the door.
There's the door, bitch!
And Hester then whispers in Chanel's ear, I am so sorry, Chanel. You do not deserve to be spoken to like that. So Hester is really eating the far side of Chanel's ass, but Chanel seems to be okay with it. So Dean Munch has gathered all the Kappa sisters and Dickie Dollar Scholar Bros in the Kappa house to address them all, considering it seems like they're the most likely targets for this alleged serial killer, the Red Devil. Grace then asks why nobody is doing anything about the Zayday abduction situation, but Chanel says that it is clear that this is a fake kidnapping on Zayday's part so she can win the sympathy vote.
So gone, girl.
That is bollocks. No, you're thinking of gravity.
Okay, everybody stop!
So all the Kappa girls and Dickie guys are yelling over each other, and number 5 screams out to Munch whether or not she's going to be closing down campus, and she says that she in fact is going to be enforcing a curfew, and everyone freaks out because it's Halloween.
Why? This is the biggest candle night of the year. I hate you right now. Don't have the authority.
Chad then goes on a speech about how Halloween is the best night of the year because dudes with killer bods get to walk around with their shirts off and girls get to dress slutty, and are they really going to deny themselves of that out of fear? And that's the gist of it. I'm leaving most of it out because it's a really stupid speech, as most of the stuff that comes out of Chad's mouth is.
The only thing we have to fear, it's fear itself. Well, in this case, serial murders too.
I have no idea how you got into this college.
But either way, Munch isn't budging and says that there is a strict curfew that everybody has to be in the house on campus, and Chad says that he blames Chanel and then compliments Hester's boobs. So this is where we're at with this love triangle situation. Chanel then goes upstairs to her bedroom to write an email to the whole student body saying that she refuses to allow Dean Munch to keep them from stopping the scourge that is Black Hairy Tongue disease in its Black Hairy tracks. So while she will honor the Halloween curfew, she will not let anyone miss out on coming out in costume to support a great cause and to make her look really good. And that is why she is opening her charity Haunted Pumpkin Patch at 12:01 a.m. on November 1st. And let's not forget,
Chanel Oberlin is above the law.
And if we're looking at this logistically, I don't really get why Dean Munch didn't make the curfew go beyond Halloween. Like, why'd she just have it for one night? I don't understand the logistics of this curfew. They don't really give us a time or any rules or structure or consequences if you break curfew, so we're just going to ignore this little detail, even though it is kind of a thing for the next couple episodes. So Hester then finds Chanel number 5 in the kitchen baking cookies for the neighborhood children with clippings of her toenails, because she noticed last year that a lot of the children have been dressing up for Halloween as Chanel, wearing classic Chanel looks that she helped come up with. Pink fur coats worn in all weather, her idea. Flapper dresses made out of feathers, her idea. Oversized sunglasses worn everywhere.
My idea! My idea! My idea!
Hester then gives us a little slice of logic and asks why number 5 is hurting children then,
Instead of hurting Chanel.
And number 5 asks Hester whose side she's on because it wasn't that long ago that she yelled at her and showed her the door. But Hester says she's a switch hitter.
Wait, are you bisexual? Because that's what switch hitter means.
But Hester's like, no, I'm a double agent and I have an idea on how to take down Chanel. So these two storm into Jennifer's room, aka Candle Vlogger, and she is vigorously typing a missive on her laptop to Dean Kathy Munch about her curfew because Halloween night is one of the biggest nights of the year for the candle community, duh. And her room is filled with literally hundreds of lit candles, which, like, so many things to say about this. This would have taken so long to light all of them. Like, how is she going to take them out? That's going to take ages. There's going to be smoke everywhere. Will it set off the smoke detectors? Are they all scented? Because that would be extremely nauseating, like walking into a Lush store. And also, that is a massive fire hazard. I definitely would not want to live under the same roof as Miss Jennifer, aka Candle Vlogger. That's for sure. But anyway, Chanel number 5 and 6 get distracted by Jennifer's huge ant farm that is all set up on her wall. And Jennifer says that there's a million of them. There's a mom ant named Deborah who mostly just lies around, and she has about 100 husband ants who come around and give it to her real good, which she enjoys. And then there's about 1 million sterile daughter ants who feed her and are her slaves.
So, an ideal family.
Okay, so Jennifer's a bit of a psycho, but then again, who isn't in this show? It's all a bit random, isn't it? But back to the topic at hand. Hester brings up the topic to Jennifer about Zayday running for president, and Jennifer says she's probably going to lose because there's only 8 girls in the house, and the 4 Chanels are all going to vote for Chanel, which means that everybody else is going to vote for Zayday, which means that there's going to be a tie. And then Chanel will just remain president anyways. But Hester says that won't happen if she and Chanel number 5 throw the vote to Zayday, and then she would win, and then she would become her second in command, quietly pulling the strings behind her like Dick Cheney. And maybe she could give Jennifer a really exciting job, like treasurer or something. But Jennifer points out the flaw in Hester's logic, which I pointed out in the previous episode. Wouldn't Zayday just choose Grace as her vice president? They're like best friends. Number 5 sees that Hester's plan isn't working and diverts to plan B, telling Jennifer that Chanel has a closet full of candles that she lights once and then throws away because they're used.
What? Show me.
So we see a devastated Jennifer in Chanel's closet with her a bunch of unused diptyque candles that she says are worth hundreds of dollars, the most expensive candles that you can get retail. And Chanel's number 5 and 6, aka Hester, tell Jennifer that if she helps them get rid of Chanel and make Zayday Kappa House president, then the candles are all hers. And clearly that's enough for her. The next day in a classroom, we see Chanel taking a test with a guy sitting next to her, and the professor goes up to her asking if she's cheating.
God, no. Kaizi is my Asian.
Excuse me?
He's not in this class. He's not even enrolled in this school. I keep him on retainer to come take tests with me.
Which is beyond crazy, but honestly kind of typical for Chanel. And the professor says that he's reporting her to Dean Munch for violating the honor code, but Chanel says he must be new here, and she's calling her daddy to get him fired. But just then, a bunch of cops come in, including Detective Shizem, and they place Chanel under arrest for the murder of Miss Agatha Bean. So Chanel gets walked out into the quad with handcuffs where a bunch of students are taking pictures of her. She sees the Chanels and Jennifer all standing watching her, looking very smug, and she looks back behind them, realizing that she's been betrayed. We then catch up with a kidnapped Zayday, who is yelling in a dark space. We then see from the Red Devil's point of view him walking through a bunch of tunnels where he gets to a room, opens up a hatch in the ground, where the camera travels all the way down, deep down into the ground, where we see Zayday screaming deep beneath. So Zayday being held captive in a pit is very reminiscent of Catherine being held hostage by Buffalo Bill in 1991's Silence of the Lambs. So we love another reference moment. We didn't have any in the last episode, and this episode is chock full of them. So later on, Grace and Pete find the remaining Chanels and Kappa sisters in the Kappa dining room having their fake lunch, where they're like fake eating. They're basically scooping air into their mouths, so we're continuing with this not so funny eating disorder joke train. Grace then says that now that Chanel is in prison, they can start doing things they want around here, starting with finding their kidnapped sister, Zayday. But Chanel number 3 says that she's next in line and she's in charge, and she's not really that bothered about finding Zayday. Grace and Pete implore them to do something about Zayday's disappearance, but Hester says that she's all for Zayday not being tortured or killed or whatever, but if she wants to be president of this house, shouldn't she be able to prove her abilities by escaping from the lair of a psychopath? And Grace says that has nothing to do with this, and Sam says actually it would be a really good quality for the president of this house, considering the Kappa girls are being targeted by the Red Devil. Chanel number 3 stands up, pissed off over this conversation, and says that there is a curfew on campus and they're already on Dean Munch's poop list, and if they all leave the house to look for Zayday, they're going to be expelled. Now, how is that doing what's in the best interest for this house?
Now please leave. It's time for the entree.
So Grace and Pete storm off, realizing that they're not going to get help from any of them, and Grace wants to go to her father, because even though they're beefing right now, he's her best friend, and he'll help her do anything. So we cut over to Wes's apartment, where he is making out in his bed with Gigi, and he keeps bringing up Grace's mother, kind of awkward, whatever. But Gigi changes the subject to being like, oh my god, this is an amazing song from the 90s. We have to do it right now. So they start getting all hot and heavy, and we then see Grace and Pete enter Wes's apartment, and Grace goes to open the bedroom door because she hears music coming from there without knocking, and she walks in on Wes and Gigi getting all nasty with it, and she is completely freaked. Everything's really awkward and uncomfortable.
Dad?
We were high-fiving.
What are you doing? I just saw her
boobs.
Gigi leaves the room and Grace is being so immature and childish about the whole situation that her father is moving on from her mother after she died 18 years ago. Like, girl, please, please stand up and get over it. I beg. I beg. Anyway, after all the awkwardness, Grace tells Pete about how they need to find Zayde because she's been missing for 24 hours now, and Gigi and Wes agree to help. And the first step is going to talk to Dean Munch, which I don't know why. We all know how useless she is with this kind of thing at this point, but I digress. We then head over to the local prison where Chanel is venting to her new cellmates, saying that her daddy wouldn't even put out her bail because he needs to pretend that she doesn't exist now that she's accused of murdering someone, because otherwise she could ruin his career. And on top of that, she's pretty sure her so-called friends are the ones who turned her in, so she's really not feeling too good right now. But the inmates tell her that they're there for her. When you have a friend on the inside, they stay friends for life, and they were really big fans of her. Some of them even got gifts from her during her Chanel-oween, and I don't know if this is the case, but this whole scene gives me like a parody / reference to Orange is the New Black. But anyway, Chanel is enjoying her new minions, saying, "You guys, I could not repay you for the kindness you've shown me."
Besties for life, I say.
Oberlin, your bail's been posted.
Later, losers.
So Chanel gets released from prison, where we see Sam and Chanel number 3 waiting for her, and she's like, "You guys are true friends." And number 3 says, "It was easy to bail you out. I told my daddy that textbooks are really expensive these days, and he just wired me $300,000 without asking any questions. Must be nice to be rich." And Chanel's like, "I don't know about you guys, but I'm famished. I wouldn't mind stopping off at Wendy's to get some barbecue sauce to dip our cotton balls in, and then justice needs to be served, and I need to go after Chanel number 5. So the girls are beefing. So over in Dean Munch's office, her and Denise Hempfield are having a silly little girly chat about how they've both slept with Chad Radwell. So I've added another line from Chad to Denise. So now Chad has had sexual relations with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 women. Okay. Damn. Chanel, you really need to find a new man, sis. And they chat about their sexual endeavors with Chad, both having very different experiences with him. Dean Munch says that it only lasted about 45 seconds, and the whole time she just felt like she was being stabbed in the abdomen. Am I right, girls? Heterosex. If you can't beat it, don't do it. However, on the other side of the coin, Denise says that Chad was the best lay of her life, and it lasted ages, but that's mainly because they did roleplay, and they both do extensive character research, but her favorite kind of dialogue is when she kept her uniform on and told Chad that he has the right to remain sexy. They then get interrupted when Grace, Pete, Wes, and Gigi storm in to ask what Dean Munch is doing about Zayde. And Dean Munch says that she's already reported it to the police, despite the fact that you can only report someone as a missing person after 72 hours, which it has not been. Which I've always thought was a stupid rule. Like, come on. Like, you know what can happen in that amount of time? And the gang agrees with me because Grace says she could be dead by then.
She could be dead now. I'm sorry, that's morbid, but she could be.
And Wes says that Munch needs to do something, hire a private investigator, and she says that she already has by hiring Secure Enforcement Solutions.
Oh, good Lord. Yes.
Denise Hempfield is on the case, and I'm gonna find Zayde because Zayde is not dead, she's the killer.
I'm gonna throw her in the slammer.
Now, pretty baby, I'm running back home to you. Fresh out the slammer, I know my first goal will be true. Fresh out the slammer, oh, camera flashes, welcome bashes. Stream Fresh Out the Slammer from the Tortured Poets Department. It's a very underrated song. Wes then goes over to Gigi, putting his arm around her, saying that they're gonna do everything they can do to find Zayde. And Dean Cathy Munch isn't too happy about this, like, oh, you two are a couple now, huh? So, looks like dibs on a person doesn't really mean much. Mean much. I'm tired. Back at Kappa House, we go over to Chanel's closet where she finds Chanel number 5 dressed in the same costume as her as Jackie Kennedy, and she yells at her for selling her out to Munch, lying that she was the one who killed Miss Bean. And Chanel number 5 is like, "Well, you did kill Miss Bean, but I would never rat you out to anyone, Chanel." And Chanel's like, "Really? Then why did Hester tell me that you did that?" And number 5 is like, "Well, she's obviously framing me." But Chanel doesn't believe this for 1 second.
I've never thought of myself as a killer, but I am seriously considering ramming this pick into the back of your eye.
Or she could be nice and give her another punishment. She needs to go to the haunted pumpkin patch and light all of the jack-o'-lanterns. But number 5 refuses to do that, saying that the killer is obviously going to be there tonight. And Chanel says, well, maybe she'll get her head sawed off. She can't think of a better Chanel-oween treat than that. Number 5 flat out refuses to do this.
Not doing it.
Interesting.
And Chanel says, okay, she's just gonna have to resort to plan B, showing her dumb frat boyfriend twins, Roger and Dodger, video footage of Chanel number 5 regularly rubbing one out in her bedroom to Dora the Explorer. Oh my god, that's so specific and random. And number 5 literally does not deny it. All she has to say is, oh my god, you have cameras in my room? And Chanel is like, I have eyes everywhere, bitch. So later on downstairs in Kappa House, the Zayday rescue team is looking over a map of the town, saying that they need to go door to door to ask anyone if they've seen anything. But Gigi then gives a very specific idea on how to find Zayday. She says, and I quote, when the glaciers melted in the last ice age, they left several different soil types scattered about the region. Now I happen to know that the house on Shady Lane, where Zayday was last seen, had a red clay substrate in both the front and backyard and poor drainage. If Zayday was kidnapped outside that house and put up any kind of struggle, there would be wet clay all over the getaway car, and then the kidnapper would probably want to get rid of that. So I'm thinking we should go to every local car wash and ask them if they've had any customers with weird red stains on their trunk. Now that's very specific. Denise asks 2 questions. Number 1, how do you know that? And as the audience, we know that Gigi is the shag of Shady Lane, so she's very familiar with that location. And Denise's other question, which is not so much a question but more of a statement, is that that is the stupidest idea she's ever heard. Pete then suggests what about calling Zayday's grandma, and Grace remembers that Zayday called her grandma on her phone once, so she has her number, and then she has a light bulb moment, coming to the most basic conclusion ever, saying that they should track Zayday's device, her phone, and then they can find where she last was. The doink. So they grab Zayday's laptop, and Grace just happens to remember what Zayday's password was, because in a flashback Zayday told her that her favorite food is Oakland nachos and it's her password to everything. So they enter it and find the address of Zayday's phone. So Denise leaves to go to her car, saying she's going to organize all of her spy gear, and then Grace goes over to her father Wes, saying that they should really talk about, and he apologizes, but she says it's okay. She's happy for him. She just wishes that he would have told her, because they tell each other everything, and she would have liked to know that the first woman he dated after her mother was A, someone she knows, and B, someone who is clearly mentally unstable. And Gigi is standing there and is like, ooh guys, by the way, like I can hear you. And then Denise storms in and is like, guys, what the hell? We don't have time for this. Get in the car.
I am not Steve Harvey, people, and this ain't the Family Feud.
So they will leave for the Zayday search party. So Chanel number 5 is standing outside the pumpkin patch with the twins, Roger and Dodger, who tell her that there's nothing to fear because they fought the Red Devil off before, and only one of them had their arms chopped off. That doesn't exactly calm down her fears, but she tells them to just hurry up and light all the jack-o'-lanterns. But the brothers get all silly and decide to go into the Shining maze, and then the Red Devil shows up behind Chanel number 5 with some head shears, and she runs off and yells out to the brothers. They come out of the hedge maze, and then all 3 of them run back into the hedge maze instead of just running away. So dumb, but it creates a really, really fun sequence. And of course, we know from the beginning of this episode that this giant hedge maze with knee-deep snowdrifts is inspired by Stephen King's novel The Shining and the 1979 movie, so we love that. Great movie, way too long in my opinion, but I digress. So the 3 of them are running in the maze away from the Red Devil, and then the brothers start arguing about which way they should go, and this turns into another conversation about how Chanel number 5 needs to choose one of them. When they were spit roasting her, they both fell in love with her, and they don't want to share her, and she needs to pick which side of the Eiffel Tower she wants.
Why are we doing this right now?
But they're not budging, so she decides to choose Roger, and him and her run off in one direction, and Dodger runs off in another. But then Chanel number 5 realizes that they're leaving footprints in the snow, so she tells Dodger that they need to walk backwards in their own footprints so the Red Devil can't follow them, and Dodger yells this out to Roger. So Roger thanks him and starts walking backwards in his own footprints, but then he gets found by the Red Devil, who chases him. He starts screaming and running away from the Red Devil, but eventually the Red Devil finds him and stabs him with the head shears and dismembers him, and we hear the scream of him, but Chanel number 5 tells Dodger that they need to keep going, and we get a time jump later on where we see Roger's body dead and frozen with his eyes rolled into the back of his head, just like Jack from The Shining. Classic reference. We love it. We love to see it. It's a really, really fun sequence. I really like this sequence actually. So back with the Zayday rescue squad, we see them arrive to the house that Grace found tracking Zayday's phone, and they speak to an old woman who shows them to her basement, saying that she's rented it out to some tenant who she's never met and she never sees, but she's not too bothered about that because he pays the rent on time every month. They then go down into the basement where there are a bunch of different corridors. They decide to split up to cover more ground. So our first group, consisting of Grace, Wes, and Pete, find a metal door that leads into the Red Devil's lair. They see a bunch of Red Devil costumes, weapons, and tools, and a dining table set with candles and roses and red wine and whatnot, so that's suspicious. But then Grace finds a hatch in the ground and opens it up, hoping that Zayday will be there. But before we can find out if she is, we go over to group 2, consisting of Gigi and Denise, who find another room, another part of the Red Devil's lair that goes through some butcher curtain into a room with a metal operating slab table, a bunch of operating tools, and blood everywhere.
It smells like booty in here.
Yeah.
So they start looking around this bloody, creepy room. Back to Grace, we see that in the hatch, Zayday is no longer there, and we then see the Red Devil's hand cut the lights on the switchboard, and everyone screams. We see the Red Devil Devil is watching Gigi and Denise through his night vision goggles, but they can't see him and they're just pointing their tasers around aimlessly. So this scene is shot in night vision from the perspective of the killer, just like in The Silence of the Lambs 1991, so another classic horror reference. The Red Devil then turns on an electric knife and Denise freaks out and accidentally tases Gigi in the boobs. Gigi freaks out and then somehow manages to see the Red Devil and tases him. The lights somehow come back on and they realize they've caught the Red Devil. Denise leaves Gigi with him and runs over to group 2. They're like, what happened? She has to catch her breath, drinks some wine and is like, that's really nice, and then tells them what happened in lengthy detail and is like, what are you guys all standing around here for? Let's go to the Red Devil. But when they all get back to the other part of the lair, Gigi is there alone holding her head, saying that the Red Devil got up, hit her with a baseball bat, and then ran up some chute. Wes goes to call the police and tell them about the lair, and Grace thanks Gigi for risking her life for them and says that she's glad that her dad has found her. And Gigi has to make it all awkward, being like, oh my god, I'm like your stepmom now, hee hee.
Really sweet moment.
Denise then comes back saying that she's run everywhere and the Red Devil is nowhere to be found, and neither is Zayde. Coincidence? She thinks not. So later on back at Kappa House, the Chanels come into the living room
Okay, hoe bags.
with a box telling the pledges that it's now time to cast their votes for Kappa president. Jennifer says that shouldn't they wait for Zayde and Grace to be there, but Chanel says that according to the Kappa bylaws written 175 years ago, the president can call an election at any time for any reason. But Sam points to the bylaws in number 3's hand, saying that it looks like they just scribbled over a certain part of it with marker and wrote in their own rules. And Chanel says that this has been the worst night of her life because her pumpkin patch was cancelled because one of those idiot twins decided he'd rather be killed than keep boning number 5. And number 5 is like, yeah, by the way, can we talk about that? That only happened a couple hours ago and I'm still sort of traumatized. And Chanel's like, what about me? I have to live with the fact that no one gets to see how amazing my maze was, and everyone will know that I've done nothing to stop the spread of black hairy tongue disease. She needs some cheering up right now, and if that means rigging an election so that she can become president again, she expects all of them to be her friends and accept that, which is not a big ask, you know? She calls for the voting to begin, but then Zayde storms in saying, not so fast. They're all shocked that she's alive, but she says that she can't be the next president of this joint if she's dead now, can she? And Kiki is completely eating this performance. I love it.
Excuse me, darling, I'm exhausted. May I have a Diet Coke, please? Actually, make it regular. I've been through a lot.
Hester asks Zayde what happened to her, and she says that the Red Devil kidnapped her and took her into his evil lair and kept her in a pit. Everyone has so many questions. Number 3 asking if he dug the pit himself or if he found a house with a pit, because there doesn't seem to be a big market for that. Hester then asks if Zayde killed him, and if she did, describe the look in his eyes, because they say that when you're killed, the eyes tell all of their lost secrets. And Chanel really isn't bothered by any of this, saying that the story is not interesting to her unless Zayde got tortured. But in a shocking turn of events, Zayde says that the Red Devil didn't really do anything to her, except send her some treats down in a basket, like Nintendo games and skincare. It was actually quite lovely. But then, suddenly, a ladder came down, she climbed up, and what she saw made her blood run cold. We then see a flashback of Zayde in the Red Devil's lair, and he gives her a bouquet of roses, sits her down to a candlelit dinner with red wine and her favorite food, Oakland nachos, and Zayde realizes that the Red Devil likes her, and she goes up to him, stroking his mask, saying she's always had a thing for bad boys. But then she grabs a fork, stabs him in his hand, pinning him to the table, saying that she hates little bitches who kill her friends, and then she runs off. So that is how she escaped. In present day, number 5 is really upset, thinking it's so unfair that the Red Devil has a crush on Zayde because it took her like 3 years to get any guy to notice her. Sam injects some logic into the situation, saying that they should call the police because duh, the Red Devil knows where Zayde is and he could come after her again. But Chanel says that they can wait because they need a vote before Grace shows up and makes it harder for her to win. And she doesn't even believe Zayde's story and thinks that they all shouldn't vote for a liar. But then to Chanel's dismay, Grace storms in saying that Zayde is not a liar. She saw the lair, everything is true. She hugs Zayde, so happy she's safe, saying she tried to rescue her, but she'd already escaped by then. And Chanel's like, enough of this whole reunion.
Now if you're done, it's time to vote.
We then get our final scene for the episode where we follow Gigi walking alone down the street at night, where she is being followed by the Red Devil. She goes to a private corner where the Red Devil turns and finds her, and she's looking pretty confident and says to the Red Devil, tonight got way out of hand. He needs to go. Take care of it. And that is the end of the episode. So yes, I'm gonna do a little reveal. Please ignore the name under here, but we have a reveal of one of the team members of the Red Devil saga, which is Gigi Cladwell. She is the planner, the ringleader of this joint, and we got our reveal in the previous episode of her being the hag on Shady Lane, and now she's clearly the mastermind behind these Red Devil killings. So we have a lot of intel, a lot of things to discuss when it comes to Gigi, and so much more to reveal. But that is the end of the episode. episodes I'll be covering in this video. Really solid episodes. I feel like the show starts off really well and kind of declines at the end, but I pretty much enjoy most of season 1. But my favorite episode out of the 3 that we discussed was probably this last one. Really loved the Shining Maze. I really loved getting to see the Red Devil's Lair. I loved getting to see the Zayday kidnapping story. I love getting to see Chanel in prison. It was just a really fun episode, and these past 3 episodes have felt really good, and this felt like a good end point for this video because it started off with the presidency and the kidnapping and Gigi and all that kind of stuff, but honestly a lot of it is also because I kind of ran out of time. Truthfully, I am moving house next week, so this wall needs to come down, and I will be putting it back up in my new place, but if it's a little bit of time between this video and the next one, please stick with me. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend who you think might enjoy it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notifications bell so you don't miss any uploads from me, and please comment down below your thoughts. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, engagement really helps me and the channel out, so I really appreciate it. But as always, I'm so thankful for you watching my videos, and I'm also really thankful for my patrons. You can go over to my Patreon for bonus content as well as early and extended content. And once again, thank you so much to the sponsor of this video, June's Journey. You can click the link in my description or scan the QR code on the screen to download that mobile game for free. I've been having a lot of fun with it, and if you enjoy mystery shows, I'm sure you will enjoy this mystery game. But anyway, guys, that is it for me in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next Scream Queens video. We'll be covering the next 3 episodes. And as always, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see my next one. And as always, I hope that you have a great day or night wherever you're in the world. Bye! We're so happy, even when we're smiling out of fear. Let's go down to the tennis court and talk it up like, yeah.